morning. Imagine looking out your window this morning, not at troops massing on a physical border, but at a reality where the civilian company that hosts your family photos, processes your bank transfers, and routes your grocery orders has suddenly been declared a legitimate military target by a foreign government.
It is a sobering thought, yes.
Quite. You are joining us for a comprehensive and objective examination of the current events shaping our global landscape. Today, we are calmly and professionally reviewing the profound developments unfolding across the Middle East over the past 2 weeks.
And we have a lot of ground to cover.
We certainly do. Now, before we begin, this deep dive is sponsored by ProWave AI and generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application. For the official record, here are the exact details of today's report. Title: Escalate or Negotiate. Iran targets global economy, cyber, and strikes across the Middle East. Region is the Middle East, specifically Iran, and the date is 9 April 2026.
Good morning. It is a privilege to be here to provide clear, measured analysis on these incredibly complex events. To give you, the listener, proper context on how we are sourcing this information, the Stylo News application generating this analysis is the consumer version of Stylo Intel Ops software.
Which is usually reserved for higher-level operations,
Yeah,
right?
precisely. That is a platform designed specifically for government, military, and business enterprise operations. What this means is that today, you have unique access to a tool designed to support global decision-makers as they navigate highly volatile, rapidly evolving situations.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is unwavering. We are here to neutrally and objectively examine the primary patterns of the ongoing conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran.
She means looking at all the angles.
Yes, we will assess the local and global impacts, analyze the perspectives of key decision makers, review public sentiment, and forecast likely courses of action based on the data. Our objective is to present the facts, the mechanisms behind those facts, and the differing viewpoints without bias. We are not here to generate fear. We are here to look at the situation precisely as it stands today.
To understand the precipice on which the geopolitical landscape currently rests, we must first establish the factual military groundwork. The current cycle of escalation was triggered by a joint U.S.-Israeli military offensive designated Operation Epic Fury.
And that campaign fundamentally altered the regional calculus, didn't it?
It did. It resulted in over 1,340 casualties. Crucially, the data confirms this included the deaths of the highest echelons of Iranian leadership, most notably Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, as well as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps intelligence chief, Major General Majid Kademi.
Right. When a nation loses its supreme leader and its top intelligence official in a single coordinated campaign, the response is inevitably seismic. And we have seen a significant kinetic retaliation from Iran.
Yes, the data shows coordinated drone and ballistic missile strikes targeting Israeli territory.
With verified impacts in central Israel, specifically densely populated areas like Petah Tikva and Bnei Brak, simultaneously Iranian forces have launched strikes on U.S. military facilities in Erbil and Baghdad in Iraq, as well as bases in Kuwait.
But as we review the battlefield damage assessments, there is a particularly notable anomaly in the data.
You're referring to the downed aircraft.
I am. We have confirmed reports detailing the loss of multiple U.S. aircraft over Iranian airspace. This includes an F-15E fighter jet, an A-10 Warthog, a Black Hawk helicopter that was involved in search and rescue, and perhaps most surprisingly, a fifth-generation F-35 stealth fighter.
Okay, let's unpack this for a moment. I mean, in previous years, U.S. air superiority was considered an absolute undeniable given by military strategists.
It was the bedrock of Western military planning.
Right, the entire premise of a fifth-generation stealth fighter like the F-35 is that it operates invisibly. So how exactly is an Iranian integrated air defense system managing to target and down an aircraft specifically designed to evade it? How does this alter the fundamental calculus for military planners?
Well, it is a paradigm-shifting data point. To understand the how, we have to look past the Hollywood idea of stealth. Stealth does not mean invisible. It means a reduced radar cross-section.
Meaning it's just harder for traditional systems to see.
Exactly. The integrated air defense systems utilized by Iran in southern and central provinces, such as Khuzestan and Isfahan, rely on highly networked multi-static radar systems. While a high-frequency targeting radar might not easily paint an F-35, a low-frequency VHF radar can detect disruptions in the airspace.
So it's like noticing the ripples in the water even if you can't see the boat?
That is a very apt analogy. By networking these sensors together and employing an immense volume of surface-to-air missiles, a modern defense network can occasionally overwhelm even fifth-generation capabilities.
So it is less about a single golden bullet and more about throwing a massive interconnected digital net into the sky.
Precisely. And strategically, this shatters prior assumptions. When a military loses stealth and close air support assets, they cannot simply maintain the status quo.
They have to adapt.
Yes, they are forced to reassess their operational altitude, drastically alter their flight paths, and reconsider their reliance on manned aircraft over contested territory. For the Iranian government, however, these shootdowns provide crucial, immediate leverage.
They use this data to bolster their internal narrative of resilience.
Absolutely. It allows the regime to project a credible deterrence posture to its domestic audience, proving they can defend their sovereign airspace even while suffering significant infrastructural damage from Operation Epic Fury.
But the airspace is only half the battle.
Yeah.
If we look closely at the intelligence that directed Operation Epic Fury, the data that located those senior Iranian officials, it did not originate merely from planes in the sky.
No, it came from servers on the ground.
Which explains a profound shift we are tracking in the data. The rapid blurring of the line between civilian corporation and military combatant.
That is correct. We are monitoring an unprecedented declaration from the IRGC. They have officially designated 18 U.S. technology and industrial firms as legitimate military targets.
And these aren't small defense contractors either.
Far from it. This list includes the titans of the global economy: Apple, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, Amazon, Oracle, and Boeing.
Incredible.
The IRGC stated rationale is that the artificial intelligence and cloud computing technologies provided by these companies directly facilitated the intelligence gathering, the logistical processing, and the precision targeting used in the assassinations of their leadership.
So if providing cloud computing makes a civilian tech company a military target, it's like declaring the company that paved the roads responsible for the tanks driving on them. I mean, does this mean the era of the neutral multinational corporation is effectively over?
The data strongly suggests that neutrality is becoming functionally impossible to maintain in the modern era of warfare. What is fascinating here is the dual-use nature of modern digital infrastructure.
Because it's used for everyday civilian life, too.
Exactly. Cloud computing and artificial intelligence are commercial products you use to stream movies or run a small business. But they are also the absolute backbone of modern military logistics. When a civilian company's server processes the data that directs a kinetic strike, state actors like Iran begin to view those data centers not as corporate offices, but as vital nodes in the enemy's kill chain.
And this is not just rhetorical posturing on the part of the IRGC. We have documented physical strikes to back this up. Reports confirm drone strikes on an Amazon cloud computing facility in Bahrain, causing significant structural damage.
There are also claims of a strike on an Oracle data center in Dubai.
Though we must objectively note that Dubai authorities have officially denied this occurrence, labeling the reports as fake news. But beyond physical strikes, the cyber warfare data is staggering.
The cyber domain is operating at maximum velocity right now. An Iranian hacker group known as Handala successfully breached and leaked the identities of 50 senior officers from Israel's elite military intelligence unit, 9900.
And that's a unit specifically tasked with gathering visual and satellite intelligence, right?
Correct. Furthermore, the personal emails of FBI Director Kash Patel were compromised. But perhaps most concerning for global stability is how this cyber conflict is accelerating broader geopolitical alignments.
You are referring to the cooperative data sharing between Moscow and Tehran.
Yes. Intelligence reports indicate that Russia has been sharing highly classified satellite intelligence on over 50 Israeli civilian energy targets with Iran.
While concurrently, Russian cyber groups like Berkut have conducted joint operations with Iranian actors.
Targeting Ukrainian military supply platforms, exactly.
Yeah.
Specifically, they're attacking the DOT chain system and the Krypiva artillery command network.
To understand the gravity of this, Krypiva isn't just software. It is the digital nervous system that allows Ukrainian artillery units to map targets and coordinate fire.
Yes, so Iran is providing Russia with the physical drones to strike Ukraine. And in return, Russia is providing Iran with the targeting data for the Middle East while they jointly attack digital infrastructure.
The fallout from these strikes, whether physical or digital, does not stop at the edge of a crater or a severed fiber optic cable. It extends directly into the global shipping lanes. We are observing a highly coordinated strategy to exploit the world's most vulnerable economic choke points.
The IRGC has explicitly stated their intent to enforce a new security regime in the Persian Gulf. They are threatening to block the Strait of Hormuz to any U.S. or Israeli vessels
And you have to combine this with the concurrent threat from Yemen's Houthi forces.
who maintain a formidable blockade capability in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait using anti-ship ballistic missiles and sea mines. And they are doing so despite severe instability within the Yemeni government itself.
So you have a direct kinetic threat to the two most critical maritime arteries for global energy transport. And the local economic impacts of this strategy are already materializing into physical damage.
We have tracked drone and missile strikes directly targeting Gulf petrochemical facilities in Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, and Bahrain.
On a global scale, the fallout is severe and immediate. Brent crude oil prices have surged over 50% since this conflict began. And if you are wondering why this specific data point matters to you, consider that a 50% spike in Brent crude does not just mean higher prices at the gas pump.
No, it echoes through everything.
Right, it means the cost of international shipping, manufacturing, and ultimately every item delivered to your local grocery store is inherently tied to that barrel of oil.
Yet, within this economic chaos, there is a glaring paradox in the data. While enforcing these choke points, Iran has managed to nearly double its own oil revenues during this exact same 2-week period.
Wait, how is that mechanically possible? I mean, if the straits are contested zones and sanctions are theoretically in place, how does a nation double its export revenue while actively at war?
Through the aggressive utilization of shadow banking networks and a heavily militarized logistics pipeline. This involves a so-called dark fleet of oil tankers that routinely switch off their automatic identification system trackers to disappear from global monitoring.
Ah, so they go dark.
Exactly. They conduct risky ship-to-ship oil transfers in open waters, rebrand the origin of the crude, and route the payments through untraceable shell companies, exporting this oil primarily to China.
So, analyzing this data, a crucial question arises. With Brent crude spiking 50% and global supply chains effectively hanging by a thread, are these economic chokeholds actually more dangerous to the broader global order than the localized missile exchanges themselves?
If we connect this to the overarching strategic picture, the answer leans heavily toward yes. Missiles cause tragic, localized destruction. But manipulating the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait causes immediate systemic global shocks.
So it's a strategy of distributed economic pain.
By leveraging geography to drive up the cost of global energy, they're attempting to force the international community nations that rely heavily on that uninterrupted flow of oil to pressure the United States and Israel into de-escalating the conflict.
That brings us to the perspectives of the decision-makers themselves. With prices soaring and stealth jets falling, it is vital that we examine how global leaders are reacting to this crisis. We will maintain strict journalistic neutrality, relying solely on the documented statements and actions of these entities. Let us begin with the perspective of the United States.
President Donald Trump's administration is aiming for definitive regime change in Iran via a strategy of sustained military pressure from the air.
And they've been explicit that this strategy does not include a ground invasion.
Correct. We have documented the president's posts on the Truth Social platform, where he has issued highly inflammatory statements threatening to forcibly open the maritime straits by overwhelming military force, warning of severe, unprecedented consequences.
Domestically, this aggressive approach has triggered significant institutional responses. The president recently fired Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Yes, the dismissal was issued in a terse, forward message.
With the administration citing profound dissatisfaction with her performance regarding internal legal clearances for these operations. Furthermore, there is strong, organized domestic pushback from Democratic leadership, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, alongside Senators Chris Murphy and Tim Kaine.
They have publicly warned that the administration's rhetoric is reckless.
They are raising formal concerns about executive overreach, specifically questioning the constitutional authority to wage this level of sustained campaign without congressional approval.
And this domestic anxiety is mirrored internationally. Over 100 international legal experts have published a comprehensive open letter raising profound concerns over distinct violations of international law, explicitly citing actions committed by all sides in this conflict.
Right. And looking at the Iranian perspective, the IRGC views the conflict fundamentally through the lens of justified self-defense and the protection of national sovereignty.
Internally, the regime is actively utilizing the wartime conditions to consolidate power. Amidst the leadership vacuum created by the sudden death of the supreme leader, They're using the external threat of Operation Epic Fury to justify internal repression and enforce stricter social controls on their populace.
The international dynamics surrounding these two primary actors are equally complex and rapidly shifting. We are tracking an unexpected diplomatic maneuver between North and South Korea. South Korea recently issued an unprecedented apology to the North for drone incursions.
Concurrently, North Korea is reportedly distancing itself diplomatically from Iran.
Wait, really? Despite Iran using their missile tech?
Yes, it is a highly calculated strategic move by Pyongyang. Despite the fact that Iran actively utilizes North Korean ballistic missile technology on the battlefield, North Korea is creating diplomatic distance to preserve positive optics ahead of an upcoming high-stakes U.S.-China summit.
Meanwhile, in New York, the United Nations Security Council is currently deliberating on resolutions to provide multinational maritime protection in the Gulf, though consensus remains elusive.
And when we analyze social media and public sentiment data across the globe, the polarization is stark. Inside Iran, there is a visible, documented split.
You see wartime nationalistic support for the military apparatus clashing directly with localized, fierce domestic dissent against the regime's economic management and social restrictions.
In the United States, the political discourse is deeply divided along partisan lines.
Internationally, the prevailing sentiment is one of profound anxiety, with widespread, mobilized calls for an immediate ceasefire. This is manifesting in physical demonstrations, such as the recent large-scale protests and subsequent arrests in the United Kingdom regarding the U.S. military's continued use of the RAF Lakenheath base for staging these operations.
It is a tense situation globally.
Looking at this data comprehensively, we find ourselves at a fascinating intersection. We have intense military confidence from leadership on multiple sides, clashing directly with deep domestic unrest and international legal anxieties. How do decision-makers balance the drive for a decisive military victory with the overwhelming international demands for economic stability and peace?
It is an incredibly delicate, high-wire balancing act. Decision-makers must constantly weigh their foreign policy objectives against their own domestic political survival.
Right. For the U.S. administration, projecting strength and permanently dismantling Iran's nuclear and military capabilities fulfills a core strategic and domestic political promise.
However, as the economic costs rise, as the price of that barrel of oil impacts everyday citizens, and as key allies express serious concern over the legality of the operations, the internal pressure mounts.
Which explains the push for a resolution.
This is precisely why we see global actors, particularly nations highly dependent on Gulf oil like China and Japan, actively pushing for diplomatic off-ramps behind closed doors. They understand acutely that a prolonged conflict threatens their own foundational economic stability.
Which brings us to the immediate future and what the intelligence estimates suggest you should watch for next. Based on the Stylo Intel ops data processing the current trajectories, we're forecasting two primary courses of action that are concurrently unfolding.
The first course of action is a continuation of the current escalation. This involves the U.S. military sustaining and potentially expanding Operation Epic Fury.
So we forecast further targeted airstrikes focused heavily on critical Iranian civilian military infrastructure.
Specifically, major logistical bridges and power plants, yes, to systematically degrade the regime's operational capabilities. Concurrently, we forecast ongoing Iranian proxy attacks across the region and a very high probability of both cyber and physical kinetic attacks directed at any U.S.-linked commercial companies operating in the Gulf region.
The second, parallel course of action involves negotiation. There are highly active back-channel efforts currently underway, primarily mediated by Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey. These nations are attempting to broker a 45-day ceasefire. But how do these negotiations coexist with the airstrikes?
It is a strategy often referred to as escalating to de-escalate. The negotiations are highly complex, potentially linking the immediate relief of crushing economic sanctions on Iran to strict, heavily verifiable limits on Iran's nuclear development program.
So both paths are currently active.
Yes. While the kinetic escalation is clearly the dominant pattern we are observing right now, the immense economic strain on the global market makes those diplomatic backchannels absolutely critical to monitor in the coming weeks. The sheer pressure from the international community to stabilize the global energy supply may force a pivot toward negotiation, even as missiles continue to fly.
As artificial intelligence and cloud computing become the absolute backbone of modern military strategy, we have to ask ourselves, in the conflicts of tomorrow, will the front lines be defined by physical borders drawn on a map or by the silent, air-conditioned servers hosting our digital lives?
It is a profound and unsettling question, and the documented events of the past 2 weeks suggest the answer is shifting rapidly and permanently toward the latter.
To stay informed on these rapidly shifting global dynamics, let me explain exactly what Stylo News is. It is a highly advanced mobile and computer application that individuals can download to customize their own personal intelligence-style briefs.
It pulls from hundreds of traditional news sources, as well as X.
Synthesizing the raw data just as we have done for you today, we urge you to take control of your information environment and subscribe for AI-powered news on demand by visiting www.stylonews.com. Well, I think we can drop the formal broadcaster voices now. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today.
Yes, thank you for tuning in.
We really appreciate you spending your time with us to navigate such a heavy, incredibly complex topic. If there is a specific region, a rising technology, or a global issue you want us to unpack in the future, please reach out and request topics for upcoming deep dives. And make sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. Until next time, keep questioning where those digital front lines are really being drawn. Take care.